All right, welcome everyone. Good evening. We're going to go ahead and get started. I'm so happy to see everyone, some familiar faces. I think we have some new folks on the call as well. I'm Daria Hall. I am the BIPOC chair and a board member with X Minds, the Partnership for Extraordinary Minds. As many of you know, we have these discussion groups monthly, and it's an opportunity to bring in diverse voices and to vent and to learn new things and just bring new insights to the table. We do have a guest speaker today who's going to take up most of the first half of our time together. Before I do a quick intro, I just wanted folks, if you could use the chat or you can come off mute, just to kind of share, your name, where you're calling from within Montgomery County or within the DMV area, and the age of your child who may be on the spectrum. So I'm Daria Hall. I am in Silver Spring, and my son is now 15 years old. Anyone can jump in, or you can use the chat.
Hi, I'm
Hi, my name
Dorita.
is Sean.
I'm Dorita. My grandson is 14, and I live in Baltimore County.
Thanks, Aretha. Good to
Glad
see
to
you
be here.
again. Yes, happy to have you.
Hi, my name is Sharna. I live in Odenton, and my daughter is 2 years old.
Thank you. Are you new to the calls?
Probably not, well, somewhat new. I started joining the calls like been about a month now, so
Okay.
fairly new.
All right. Well, welcome back.
Thank you.
I got Sylvia and Priyanka in the chat. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Georgina and I live in Montgomery County and my son is 8 years old.
All right. Wonderful. Thank you, Georgina. All right. Did we miss anybody?
Just want
Okay.
to say hi, I'm Melanie, and I have an 18-year-old son who is autistic. Nice to see everyone.
Thanks, Melanie. And Melanie, as many of you know, is our executive director. Okay, so let's jump in. Our special guest is Marcy Jackson, the founding coordinator of CS, Special Education Excellence for Underserved Students. It's an initiative developed under the nonprofit fiscal sponsorship of international partners that's in partnership with the Weinfeld Education Group, which I'm assuming some of you all may already be aware of. CS provides free expert special education advocacy to Black students with special needs. Marcy has been an education consultant for 30 years within the higher education, special ed, advocacy, and workforce education spaces. She's a practitioner with experience and research interests in equity and disability education, leadership, and parenting. And she's the co-author of PARENTS, Parents, Life Skills, Literacy, and Leadership Framework for Social Change, and author of Transformative Solutions for Equity and Justice in Special Education, Frameworks for Anti-Race Policy and Practice, which is going to be released, I think, later on this year. So congrats on that, Marcy, and welcome. We're glad to have you. I know you have a presentation you prepared for us. If you want to pull that up now, that
Thank
would
you
be
so
great.
much.
And I'll hand the mic over to you.
Thank you so much. I appreciate your introduction. It's wonderful to be here with you all and to thank you for the introductions of everyone. It was really helpful to see where everyone is from: Baltimore, Odenton, Silver Spring, Montgomery County, Rockville. So that's fantastic. See us as you heard, I am the founding coordinator for an initiative called CS, Special Education Excellence for Underserved Students, and we serve students all across Maryland, DC, and Virginia. So this is you all are sort of folks we talk to all around for the last several years. We've been doing this since 2020, so it's we what, as you may know, the rules and regulations around special education are federal, so they are national, they are statewide, and then of course we have some local regulations that must also be followed. So Wonderful. So let me go ahead and get started. I'm going to try to, if you have questions along the way, please put them in the chat. I kind of have anticipated some of the questions you might have, so I've kind of built them in. And then at the end, we'll definitely have some Q&A. If I say something and you aren't sure what I said, you kind of want some clarification, please feel free to interrupt. All right, so let me move on. One of the benefits or sort of what CS is called to do and wants to make sure we do is we want to be seen. And so speaking from a child's voice, a child with disabilities, a child maybe with autism, we want to be seen as reading proficient, as twice exceptional in many cases, as self-advocates, and socially successful, and of course more. Oftentimes, students with disabilities, particularly, I'll speak to the autism group, struggle in the areas of language and communication and being able to articulate what it is that they know or what it is that they would like you to know. And so sometimes that lack of language skills can present socially awkwardness or difficulties with communication and relationships. And oftentimes when those relationships happen or don't happen well, the child can get in trouble, quote unquote, right? Can find themselves having challenges with following rules, whether they are written rules and of communication and peer relationships, or those unwritten rules. And so what we do is we want to be able to identify what the real needs are, and we want to be able to help our students to receive the support and services they need so that they can become socially successful, for example, using that language. Twice exceptional, you may have heard, that's where our students are maybe struggling in one area, whether that be, say, reading, but really strong and really successful in another area, say math, and have a disability. So that disability might be autism, but yet their gift is in mathematics. So we want to find out what those needs are and be able to provide services and supports for our students. So that's where the name See Us comes from. It's like see us for who we are. And why expert special education advocacy? So See Us, the means by which we provide services is through a strategy called advocacy. And advocacy is essentially showing up for the student and advocating for what is in the best interest of the student. And why do we provide this advocacy in the school setting? Because parents need help. And they ask for help in a variety of different ways. They may express concerns about their child's progress. They may want assistance with the IEP process. They might find themselves in crises regarding a child's behavior. They may feel like, you know, I need to get some more answers, some more information, and so I require some educational testing. And so on your screen are just some examples and some ways in which we provide help to parents through the special education advocacy. And one of the reasons why parents need help is for some reason, and you probably know some of these and we'll share some a little later, parents do not access their their rights to IDEA in the same ways as other parents. So typically, to know about your rights to IDEA, the Individuals with Disabilities Education Act, to know more, to access your rights, you have to know them. And you have to be able to sort of speak the language and use the appropriate wording. And so not all parents know that. You have to know how to monitor progress. You have to know what the regulations are regarding timelines and rules and how to monitor performance, how to make sure that services are being provided with fidelity. So there are a lot of pieces around making sure that students, parents are accessing their rights to the idea. And what often happens is there are opportunities regarding dispute resolution that are often only found among very high income districts. And very high income districts, as you will know, across the country are typically not found among groups of people where you might be considered BIPOC. And so for those reasons, we want to try to level the playing field and provide more resources to those in the very low income districts to be able to access more of their rights to the special education laws and services and supports. So this is one of the reasons why CS exists. And so what do we do? Well, advocacy provides assistance with IEPs or 504 plans. Our main goal, in addition to helping with that legal navigation, is to form and provide an expert opinion about the child's special education needs. And we do that through a variety of ways. And that is what kind of formulates our pathway and our strategy around getting the services. And services could include behavior intervention plans, assessments, and interventions. And of course, you've probably heard about IEP goals. So why Black students with special needs? CS is a targeted organization that focuses specifically on Black students with special needs, while advocacy is a service. I'm a special education advocate as well as the founding coordinator for CS. And as a special education advocate, I've been advocating for students for about 15, 16 years. Of all nationalities, because as you can see, IDEA and our rights to special education as students are applicable across everyone. But what happens is because of the systemic racism and the impact that generational history of oppression and all of these factors that have made kind of life and success difficult, particularly for individuals who identify as Black. That's where we've targeted and decided to target our resources. So most individuals who are receiving special education services are American Indian, Alaskan Native, and Black students come in second. In our region, in the DC, Maryland, and Virginia region, our population of students are, I'll share with that, but we tend to have more Black students than we do American Indian, Alaskan Native in our region. So Black students, for the most part, are the ones who are receiving most of the, or being identified mostly under IDEA in this region. In Maryland, Black students are 34% of the total school population. However, they are 50% of the students with emotional disabilities and 58% of the students with intellectual disabilities. And so you can see that there's also a need for us to help to align the identification element, because we have, so one of the things we do, and that's through the identification process, is we make sure that students are properly identified. So sometimes some of you may have a student who receives special education services based on a disability code that may be accurate and may not be. And so that's kind of one of our starting points is, do we have a correct identification? And so some students, what we have found through the research, probably for the last 30, 40 years, is that Black students when identified, tend to be identified more with emotional disabilities or intellectual disabilities. It's getting better, but that's typically the crux of where it lies. And so we aren't seeing a lot of Black students identified with autism, for example. But because that example I gave you earlier, where we were talking about the student that might have struggles with language and social difficulties, is that student being screened for a variety of needs, or is that student being automatically identified as having an emotional disability? So I'm just trying to oversimplify this so we don't use any heavy jargon, but that's essentially what we want to do, is we want to make sure at the first level that we're getting the right identification. And so that is very important. And then another factor, and there are many factors when it comes to disproportionality in special education, but one of the factors is teacher effectiveness. And so we also provide professional development. And that's really important because teachers typically, recent research in the American Journal for Education, where teachers had lower teaching effectiveness scores when they instructed classrooms with more Black students, and to a lesser extent, Latinx students. So that's really important. So we want to get to and really address bias because it really does play a serious role when it comes to educating our students. For example, teachers may be more biased. When you have more Black students in a classroom, there are less open-ended questions. There are less activities around critical thinking, for example, because there's that bias of that maybe these students might not be able to benefit from that level of rigor. So this is very important. And as you know, some of our students are taught in general education, not necessarily in a separate school setting. So if we're taught in general education, we need the teachers to really be inclusive of not only students with special needs, but students who have yet to be identified and may also need challenging opportunities, whether they are gifted or whether they are dealing with a learning disability, for example. So bias under the teacher's domain is very important. So what does CS do? CS delivers free expert special education advocacy to underserved Black students with special needs. And so one of the main, I guess, a critical passion for us as CS is to address the school to prison pipeline. As you can imagine, when we are not properly identifying and or servicing students, they aren't getting the help they need. And oftentimes students become disenfranchised with school and community. Oftentimes you hear about discipline, disproportionality in discipline, and that can lead to interfaces with law enforcement and there's a lot of different points. But the point is, if we can get students to be successful in education by 3rd grade, okay, I'll give you 4th grade. We can dramatically change the trajectory of lives. And so that's why early identification is really important. That's why proper identification is important. That's why appropriate services is really important. So this is what CS is doing. And because of all of these numbers you see here, and many of them are affecting Black students in particular, and when you look at the end of the school to prison pipeline, when you look at death row, for example, and you look at the lives of our students who are incarcerated, it largely affects Black individuals who may or may not have received appropriate education. So this is why CS does what it does. Eligibility. So what we do is we have a screening process, and CS raises money. It's a nonprofit. We raise money for individuals who identify as Black, who are in pre-K to 12th grade, anywhere in DC, Maryland, and Virginia, may be diagnosed or suspected as having special needs. It could be a medical condition. It could be a disability. It could be you're trying to determine the needs. Oftentimes, there are a lot of hidden disabilities such as chronic pain or chronic illnesses, mental illness, and autism, for example. And these are the top 5. They're top in the top there. What I just mentioned are in the top 5 listing of hidden disabilities. And so it's really important that we make sure that we are addressing. We don't want to over-identify, but we certainly don't want to under-identify. We want to get it right. And then, of course, our students are impacted by systemic racism in some way. So through our screening process, they will let us know that they may have been a victim of a hate crime. They may be living under the poverty threshold. They may be impacted by housing instability. So there are various ways. We do not ask for financial qualifications. So we don't ask you to submit the initial service that CS offers to all students, or regardless of income at this time. We do make sure that we appropriate resources appropriately. So we do try to make sure we give it to those that are, it may be a family that might be in crisis. We try to make sure we deal with those families first, if at all possible. A couple of sample clients that we've had, just to give you an example, as you can see, M is in Baltimore City Public Schools, a 9th grader with intellectual disability. B is in PGCPS, a pre-K student with autism. And R is in MCPS, Montgomery County Public Schools, a 4th grader with autism. And we provide services to each student individually according to whatever it is that they might need. In B's case, the pre-K with autism, it was a matter of transitioning from pre-K into K and following along to make sure that the services and evaluations and everything that is needed or was needed in pre-K continues and is modified as necessary for kindergarten. And so that's the services that is being provided, for example. And just as I mentioned in terms of the process, so how do you get involved in CS? You can contact Weinfeld Education Group, and there's a phone number right at the bottom, 301-681-6233. Through the presentations like I'm doing now, you can put your information in the chat and I can contact you. Through our partners, we are constantly adding additional partners and working with partners and organizations to help spread the message. There are other organizations who are also interested in serving underserved students. And social media. We are trying to generate a serious social media presence. And so see, I'm not that good at social media because I should have had a slide. But I can tell you social media, you can follow us at See Us Students. See Us Students, we are on Twitter, or X, I'm sorry. And we are also on Facebook, See Us Students, Facebook, and Instagram also. And also LinkedIn. We can find us on LinkedIn. LinkedIn, See Us, Special Education Excellence for Underserved Students on LinkedIn. Okay, so we'll go through the intake. We'll do an in-person screening over the phone. So you don't have to fill out any forms. You give that number a call. We will communicate internally, and then we will move forward and get you screened. Someone will call you, ask you some questions over the phone, hear your story. It's a safe place for you to talk. And then we move you on to a case consultation. And then if needed, more advocacy assessment or training. Sometimes we can address what's needed with a client right at the case consultation. I think that is it. See us success, see change. And we are a nonprofit. So if you happen would like to donate to see us because of the impact that we need to have, please take a picture of this QR code. You can give a donation, you can sponsor a student. And we would greatly appreciate it. I'll make sure you get a copy of these slides. And then the last thing I'll mention is just that if you need to contact me, here's my email address. Just if you want to ask me something, specific, maybe kind of offline, or you aren't sure how to pose the question to CS or what have you, feel free to contact me directly. As I mentioned, I'm the CS coordinator, but I am also an advocate. And so I can also help you. All right. I think that's it.
Thank you, Marcy. You squeezed everything in. Thank you.
I did it, sure.
We do have a few questions in the chat, and
okay.
that
Hold on for me
first. But then also, folks, feel free to come off and ask any additional questions. So you did address the income limit question, but was curious if when do you start to look at income? Because I am assuming that it does come into play at some point.
Yeah. After there have been so you automatically get 2 hours of service right now. So we change it throughout the year depending on what our budget is. So we want to still be able to serve students. So what happens is after that initial case consultation, if it's determined that you need more hours, then we go ahead and look at financial. And right now our threshold is $25,000. So if the family makes under $25,000, that's when we can provide additional hours. And it's all depends on at that moment where we are in our budget for that period, that quarter. So it can vary. It can vary, but for the most part, after the first 2 hours when we start to look at income, because then we got to start making decisions, because it's really unique, because we might have a family who's in the midst of having their services addressed. So if that family is in crisis, we want to make sure we can continue to support them. Whereas we might have another family who might not be in need for another month or so. So sometimes there is some juggling that we have to do. It's really important that we try to stay very sensitive to the needs of each individual family.
So I just want to make sure I'm hearing you right, though. So the initial intake and consultation, it's a couple of hours. That's free for no matter what, who you are, where you fall in on that, I guess that income
yes,
spectrum. Correct. But to continue working with the team, you have to make below $25,000.
Yeah, in order to get it for free.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, you can certainly, pay for it if you can afford it. But to get it for free, we fundraise because we want to make it free. So sometimes we give clients, sometimes we have, some of our families are receiving an additional, a full year. So that's up to 15 hours, for example. Some may only need half of that to have their needs met for their case for the rest of the school year.
And is there a sort of a scale at all, just considering?
We just use $25,000, and we ask families to send us verification of income. It could be a tax statement, or it could be a pay stub.
Okay. Sharna asked, what are the qualifications for an IEP review? Do you also attend school meetings along with parents as an advocate?
Yes, we do attend meetings with parents. Qualifications for an IEP review. Tell me what you mean by that.
Is Sharna still here? I'm assuming, I don't want to put words in Sharna's mouth, but she may have had to hop off. I'm assuming she meant, to get the free service.
Oh, okay.
IEP review. Yeah.
IEP review.
Which you just, I think, walked us through.
Yeah. So part of that advocacy consultation, we are reviewing records. So we're reviewing all the records, the IEP, the evaluations, the reports. Um, we're reviewing whatever records are appropriate, are related. So that could include an IEP. I hope that answers your question.
And is there a long waiting list right now, Marcy?
No, right now, no.
Okay. As Sylvia asked, are the advocates, lawyers in the program also the same providers from the Weinfeld Group for the rest of the
Yes,
clients? Okay.
yes,
And is the 25,000 income limit for family or per parent?
family.
For the family. Okay. I'm just curious, how do you all, and I want to open it up for any other questions that folks may have.
Mhm.
I mean, being in the DMV, we all know how costly it is to live in this area, and even you may make a decent amount of money and still not be able to to afford the additional cost that it requires for outside therapy and support. So I was happy to hear. I think you said it's a sliding scale sometimes that's available for
Yes,
service.
yes.
Okay, all right. Oh, Sharon is back. How much is paying out of pocket per hour rate? Yeah.
Yeah, I'm not at liberty to say that. I would suggest you call Weinfeld Education Group or any other advocacy group that you feel you want to work with. We're not here to just promote one organization. So it depends, you would contact the group directly. But when you call that phone number, you can ask that question about, rates and services. If you're interested in CS, they will direct you to CS to be screened for CS services. But if you're not interested in CS, then yeah, you could just contact that group and just let them know you came to this presentation and that Marcy, you talked to me, or, well, yeah, that you talked to me, and suggested you call and let them know your situation. Talk about what state your financial situation, talk about what your situation is with your student, with your child. Are you in crises? Are you looking for support? You anticipate you're going to need support down the road. So be open, don't make it, make it an open conversation, because it's very, we're, at least our group, we're pretty sensitive to that, to the needs of each family. And so it's not just, well, how much of those pair of shoes and you can or you can't, so sometimes it's really about what the needs are.
Marcy, sorry to double down here, but we did have a follow-up question. Is 25K gross income?
Yeah, gross.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. One other question I had that you and I talked about a little bit was, because we're, this is a diverse group, we try to bring, different opportunities to our network. But the therapist or the case manager, I think maybe is the title that is assigned to work with families, may not necessarily be a person of color, but they are trained around bias and to be culturally inclusive. Right?
Yeah, that's a great question. So the title of that person is an advocate. So what CS does is CS has a CS specialist, and I'm a specialist as well. So I'm a coordinator, an advocate, and specialist. And so a CS specialist is informed on, is trauma informed, is culturally competent, and is a parent educator, and also is an advocate. So there are a few CS specialists, and so we're the ones that usually interface with the families initially or throughout. If there's some, difficulties or questions or challenges or whatever, we are there to kind of support and follow the case along. So we have weekly case conferences. So the CS specialists meet weekly, and we also invite the advocates to meet with us during our case conferences. So sometimes the advocates will talk about everything that's going on in the case. And so we can infuse some suggestions It could be, one example is sometimes we work with families where the parents are not in agreement, or the parents may be co-parenting. And there's a struggle sometimes with sort of getting to, and both of those parents may also be having responses to their own trauma, and having difficulty with communication with each other, with the school, and with the advocate. So it's sometimes we do have to try to provide some support so that the advocate can do their job and provide that expert opinion. So I hope that helps to answer your question in terms of the support and services that we provide to make sure that, we want the advocate is there to focus on the expert opinion and the legal navigation. And so we want them not to have to focus on so much of the other intangibles. We want them to be mindful and share it and be able to address it if it is relevant. And sometimes it is. It really is. And sometimes it isn't. And I mean, I want to say that this isn't about every case, that comes through. There's some, horrible racism going on and the child isn't getting the IEP because they're being racist. I hear that sometimes, and that's not what this is about. It's a systemic issue. It's not the teacher is harming the child intentionally. Those things we typically don't see. Now, we do see some bias, absolutely. And we do see some subtleties, and we do see some really deeply set issues in schools. We really do. But for the most part, we try to give the school team, we try to be collaborative, and we try to educate the parent along the way. And we don't want this to be a fearful situation, but we also are very assertive when we need to be.
Thank you, Marcy. Are there any other questions for Marcy? All right. Well, thank you so much for joining us and for taking time out today. Is there anything you would like to leave us with at all?
I'm going to put my email in the chat, just so you all have it. I'm also going to put the CS email in the chat, so you have that.
Okay. I dropped the, oh, you did? Okay, perfect.
Yeah.
Yes,
yeah.
Perfect. And I think just for our network, and as you and I talked, Marcy, we're trying to just make sure that our network is informed. They realize they have different options. And even if this may not be a good fit for them, maybe it's a good fit for someone else. I saw that somebody mentioned that in the chat, right? So again, the more informed that we are, the better decisions we can make for our kids and for ourselves. So thank you for the time tonight, and I will give you back your time. We're gonna hang out if you're gonna hang out everybody else. But thank you, Marcy.
Thank you. Oh, sure.
I have a question.
Where do you meet if you want to meet? Where do you meet, at the person's house or the office?
Oh, great question. Great question. Our office is in Bethesda. But lately, the last couple of years, we've been meeting on Zoom, but sometimes I've met parents at libraries, I've met parents at schools, so we can meet wherever is convenient for you.
Oh, okay. That's great. Thank you.
Oh, you're welcome. All right. Well, great question. Thank you for having me. And you all asked some really good questions. If you think of any others, don't hesitate to give us a call.
Thanks so much, Marcy, for joining us. Appreciate it. Have a good night.
Thank you so much. Okay, you too. Bye-bye.
Bye.